Hello again. Today I'm going to take a few minutes and talk about the White Witch in Prince Caspian. I know a lot of people were surprised to see her in the trailer, I myself being one of them, but I'm going to take a little bit and explore why she's there and whether that's good or bad. Fans object to having Jadis in Prince Caspian for really two reasons. The first one is a very valid point. Allowing the witch into Prince Caspian really makes Caspian himself a weaker character. He's really no better than Nickabrick in this version. He will, give himself over to whoever or whatever will give him the most power, and that's not the Caspian that we know. But should that really surprise us? I mean, based on everything else that we've seen, all of our spoiler reports that we've seen so far, this isn't the same Caspian that we know. I mean, the Caspian that we know is 12 years old. The Caspian in this movie is 17. That right there should clue you into a few discrepancies between the book and the movie. But I digress. The second point that people make is that bringing the White Witch back is too comic booky. This I don't really see as a valid point, because this is not a scenario that Adamson and his screenwriters made up for the movie. This is a scenario that C.S. Lewis himself put into the book. Unfortunately, Adamson pushed it too far. C.S. Lewis made the return of the witch an imminent threat to Narnia. So much of a threat, in fact, that Caspian and Dr. Cornelius and Truffle Hunter kill Nickabrick over this very issue before they can bring the White Witch back, because they know it's trouble. And fans who seriously object to bringing the White Witch back like to quote the line from the book Prince Caspian, "The witch is dead. All the stories agree on that." That's a line that Dr. Cornelius says. But they forget that just a few lines later, the hag replies, "Whoever heard of a witch that really died, you can always get them back." Here I see that C.S. Lewis gave the hags the power to call up this apparition of the White Witch. And all Adamson did was allow the hag to carry out her plan, which is still unfortunate, but not unfounded in the book. So basically, C.S. Lewis came up with a scenario, Adamson just sort of pushed it a little bit further. And the witch being able to reappear after her death shouldn't really surprise anyone, because the books are filled with people who appear after their deaths. Caspian himself appears after his death, so does Eustace and Jill, and Peter, and Edmund, and Lucy, and even Aslan himself. So people who use this argument that people who are dead should stay dead would, by this logic, have to argue that bringing Aslan back in wardrobe is too comic booky. If one wants to criticize C.S. Lewis for bringing dead characters back, then you can go ahead, but I think getting upset at the movie makers is a little bit of misplaced aggression. Although I understand why you're mad at the scene, because it really does weaken Caspian's character. So why did they allow this scene in the first place? Well, in the book, here's how I see it. In the book, they have the time to build up the threat of the witch coming back. They have a very nice dialogue scene, a very long dialogue scene, where Nickabrick and his cohorts plan to bring the White Witch back, and they lay out this plan and discuss it with Cornelius and Caspian. And they take a long time to build up the tension that, what if they do bring the White Witch back? Well, this would be terrible. But film being a visual medium, in order to get that same sort of foreboding that the witch might return, you almost have to show her. Otherwise, you'd risk slowing the movie down, which I'm not against slowing the movie down for valid bits of exposition. But this is one case where I think that they could get the same amount done with just this quick little scene of showing the White Witch, And I really think that showing Caspian and the White Witch stretching their arms towards each other really gets the idea across that the witch could come back. I mean, she's nearly at the door. She could come back and totally take over Narnia again, which would be a total nightmare scenario. Miraz is bad, but I believe that the White Witch is worse. Evidently, Adamson and his, this might be a darker place than you remember, folks, evidently don't think so, but everyone's entitled to their opinion. I'm not really upset about this scene, though, because the witch just can't stay long. Basically, it can't go anywhere. This scene just can't go anywhere. As we know from other reports, Caspian doesn't like to give up control. He likes to be in charge. And if Caspian won't surrender control to Peter, what are the chances that he's going to hand over his rule to the White Witch? Pretty much none. And if not, then how would they kill her? If they got her into Narnia, how would they get rid of her again? I mean, it was hard enough to kill her when she was alive. How in the world are they going to kill her when she's a ghost? So I really don't think that Jadis can even step out of that ice block. We've already heard reports that Edmund smashes the ice block before she even gets out. So that would, of course, confirm my theory. Really, though, there are so many things wrong with Prince Caspian, the movie, that having the White Witch return for a split second is really, number 134 on my list. I mean, I don't see it as too big of a problem. And depending on how the scene plays out, the movie might actually benefit from having the White Witch come back, because it clearly shows that Caspian is in the wrong. And I think that this would force a confrontation between Peter and Caspian, in which it looks like Caspian has to submit to Peter's common sense and to Peter's plan of single combat with Miraz. I may be wrong, but to me, this looks like how this is going to play out, based on how they've rearranged the movie. So, basically, parting words, Narnia fans, relax. The White Witch may be in this movie, and she might not belong in the movie, but she seriously can't stay very long. So, put your minds at ease. She just can't go anywhere.